Hello and welcome back to the third episode of On the Shelf. I'm Kat, this is Carol. These are the books that are on the shelf available for checkout today that we're happy to recommend to you. So the first book that I have to talk about today is called The Sugar Queen, one of my favorite comfort books. It's about a 27-year-old named Josie, who's sure of three things: that winter in her North Carolina hometown is her favorite season, and she's a sorry excuse for a Southern belle, and that candy is best eaten in the privacy of her closet. So for a while, Josie has settled into her uneventful life, living with her mother, and her one consolation is the stockpile of sugary treats and paperback romances that she escapes to each night. Until one night, she finds her closet harboring none other than a local waitress, a tough-talking, tender-hearted woman who is part nemesis and part fairy godmother. So this book is quirky, it's charming, it's set in the wintertime, but it's lushly told, so you feel like you can taste things, you can smell things.
It's just what I want.
It's perfect. And then, of course, it takes place at the holidays, so family secrets are going to pop out, which is always fun. Better in a book than
Right.
at home. And then one thing I love about this is that there's some magic sprinkled through it, and it's just a delicious read. You want to gobble it up.
That sounds really good. I've never read that one, but I love that coincidentally the main character is a Southern belle because it's a good segue into my first book, which is The Southern Lady Code. And this one is actually a collection of essays. So Helen Ellis had also written American Housewife, which was fiction. And this one is more based on stories, just little stories from her life and her experiences as a Southern lady. And it's mostly humorous, although it depends on your sense of humor. She's a little snarky.
Okay.
And a lot of it has to do with family life and marriage. So, if you're not in that place in your life right now, it might not hit as humorous to you. But what I did like was, as I read some of the short stories, I just sort of imagined, I don't know, did you ever watch Designing Women? It's an old show.
I've seen episodes at ages ago.
Right? Okay, yes, it's very old. That is appropriate that it was ages ago, because I can't remember the last time I saw it. But it's just that actress Dixie Carter, that's who's reading this to me. And it's a nice distraction, which I think right now is, at least for me, was really nice, because with everything going on and with the holidays, it's kind of nice to be able to just sink into something that you don't have to think too much about, but it also keeps you from thinking about anything else that might be going on around you. And not every essay is humorous. There's one called Serious Women, where she goes along with one of her friends who is a lawyer. She goes into court, and that one is actually quite serious. And, she's an Alabama native, but she lives in New York. And so it's kind of interesting for her. She talks a lot about Southern phrases and sayings, and like bless your heart, and just a bunch of other ones. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was where that's from. And, I'm not a Southern lady. I mostly grew up in California, but my family does do Black Eyed Peas at New Year's, which I didn't realize was definitely a Southern tradition. So it's just kind of interesting, and it is in large print. So if you're looking for a large print book, this is available.
So my next choice is Early Riser by Jasper Fforde, one of my all-time favorite authors. He's astounding. This book is kind of a quirky dystopian book. But he defies genre. It is mystery, it is science fiction, it's fantasy, it's all of those things. You couldn't categorize it in any one of them. One of the things I like best is that he recreates an alternate world, and the details he puts into it is amazing. So this book, it just plunges you into an alternate Earth history where humans need to hibernate during the winter. So it's kind of like the Ice Age never ended, and so they sleep all winter long in order to, I think the temperatures get down to minus 100 degrees. So that's what humans do, except for the winter guard, the early risers who stay awake during the winter, committed to keeping the sleepers safe. But because it is he's such an odd man. It's absurd. The absurdity in this book is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. So let me see really quickly. So the winter consuls are a committed but mildly unhinged group of misfits who are responsible for ensuring the hibernation safe passage of the sleeping masses. So they're investigating an outbreak of viral dreams that they dismiss as nonsense, nothing more than an artifact born of the sleeping mind. But then the dreams start to kill people, and it's unsettling. And then you get the dreams too, and that is weird. So it's funny, but there's a mystery, there's a conspiracy. It's just it's a hard book to get into because you're all of a sudden in this new place with new geography, new vocabulary. So it may take a running start to get into this, but it's definitely worth pushing through. Love this author. So much fun.
I was going to say, now, is that part of a series? Because I know he writes.
He does write series. This is a standalone book.
Okay, good to know.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to talk about this one, which I have a couple different versions of. And it is Ready Player One, which, gosh, I don't even know the year this came out, but it has been a while, by Ernest Cline. And the reason that I chose it to talk about today is that last week, Ready Player Two came out by Ernest Cline. So it was a long time coming. People wanted the second one for a long time. And I know you've read this. A lot of people have read this. And the reason I chose it is you might be on hold for Ready Player Two, and you might be just waiting. Maybe you want to go back and reread it. Maybe it's been long enough that you want to go back and give it a second look just to refresh. Or maybe you didn't read it in the first place and you don't know about this wonderful book. So I'm going to let you know that it is a great book for people who might be into video games or just anything virtual. And I know right now a lot of us are doing a lot of virtual webinars and classes and a lot of things virtually, but this is kind of more an exciting virtual world, I would definitely say, and definitely has that gaming element to it. And I don't want to kind of ruin the plot of it, but I didn't think I would like it because I'm not a gamer. And but I was pleasantly surprised because when I did read it, someone just said, "Oh, you've got to read this book," and I fell for it. And within a chapter or two, I was like, "Okay, I get it. I see why I have to read this." And a pleasant surprise for me was all of the 80s references to 80s music and things that were happening in the 80s and pop culture. And I'm a child of the 80s, and it was so cool for me. And the person who wanted me to read this was not a child of the 80s, but loved researching and finding out all of the little 80s references and what they were about. So that's just kind of an added bonus to this book, I think.
Right.
So we have it available in paperback. We also have it available in Spanish. And then separately, and I say separately, is the movie because it is so different from the book. So if you have seen the movie, you definitely still need to read the book because the ending is different. Some of the characters are different. There's no 80s references even in this movie. It's just completely different in so many ways. So, but we've got the movie available right now as well.
And both are a fun adventure, either way.
Exactly. I did love the movie too. It's just
Okay, so I also wanted to remind everyone that we do have magazines available on the shelf right now for checkout. It's something that you can always call us and we can set aside some for you, or you can even put them on hold through our online catalog. We do get them weekly and monthly, so just it changes all the time. We're constantly getting new, fresh issues. They're just kind of sitting there, so take advantage of them. They're brand new and ready to be read.
absolutely.
So, and some of them are also available on Flipster. But if you like the paper copy, we've got them here. Dozens and dozens of titles.
Yeah. I've been checking out the paper copy just to have something to flip through. And then, especially for recipes, when I find one, I go to Flipster and just print it out because you can print from Flipster. So, kind of been looking at the same magazine two different ways. All right. So, the last one that I want to talk about is an audiobook. One thing in the winter, I'm so spoiled. I love to get cozy in a blanket and read a book, but sometimes my hands get cold. I'm like, everything is warm except my hands. So I love an audiobook under a blanket next to a fire. It's so cozy, and I feel like a kid when somebody's reading out loud to me. And this is a biography, more myself, a journey by Alicia Keys. And she's a very famous R&B singer who, yes, I've heard of, but I am not a fan. Like, I don't follow her musical career. I don't have her albums, but I love her story. It's amazing. So the first thing I want to point out is that it reminds me a lot of some of the other audiobooks that I've listened to by some very famous entertainers. One was Me by Elton John, excellent. And then also Julie Andrews' Homework. And these are people I am familiar with. And again, it just felt like, ooh, they're my friend and they're telling me their personal stories. But so to listen to Alicia Keys, it was like meeting a new friend because I'm not so familiar with her. And she is just, within like a couple of sentences, you're like, this is my new best friend. She's amazing. And she definitely grew up in New York and has been studying music just her whole life and playing the piano. And it's Alicia reading, but it's also a cast of other people in her life. So her mom reads a little part of it. Her producer, her boyfriend. There's even Oprah Winfrey and Jay-Z and Michelle Obama. So it's just like this whole cast of people. And again, just by listening to an audiobook, it's so personal to get to hear that message. The last thing that I loved about it is her story. And this really is, it's almost like a self-help book for people who are people pleasers, right? Who can't really say no, and they're always gonna just do that favor or push themselves to go a little harder. And it's her process of how she grew out of that through the profession. And so some of the things aren't super relatable, like being able to just hop on a jet and leave the country at the last minute, right? Like most people don't have that financial ability to do as well as that freedom in their career and their work. But it's through some of her trips that she just took the time to reflect on what she was doing, to figure out, okay, how do I change this part of my life? And it was fascinating to me. And she's just, if you're looking for a strong female character, this is definitely the book for you. But we have the audiobook, it's brand new, and it is available on the shelf, just like all of these items that we talked about in our third episode. So it's been such a pleasure, Kat, to do this with you, and I hope that you enjoyed it if you were watching. We are safely distanced, socially distanced here, so we're going to head back. And even though the library building is closed to browsing, we're doing our best to bring these materials to you so you can come in and check them out or place them on hold.
That's right.
All right. See you.